Hey guys, my name's Russkiy and today I'm back with another video. Now I want to talk about a topic that's been on my mind for a couple days, and that is the difficulties of being a game developer in general, especially being an indie developer. And I find that the main thing that you always have to worry about if you're a new upcoming indie developer is the fact that people don't like indie developers. People see most indie developers as kids with the personal unity that just take assets off an asset store and just slam it together and call it a game. But then you have other people who just completely ignore indie games simply because it's an indie game. And you always have to rely on much larger people to get your game even out. And alongside that, you also have some people who will always complain. Well, why is it on this? Why isn't it on this? Because I play on that, not that. Or they'll say, oh, you put it on that? Well, I'm just gonna write a bad review on it. And it makes no sense, because as an indie developer, when you see someone like, oh, this should be on consoles, you always have to think, well, I can't put it on a console. I mean, how fucking retarded are you? And it almost seems like people think that just because you make a game, you can put it wherever you want. It's true, you can put it technically wherever you want if you have the money. That's the biggest thing, is you'll always have people saying, I think this would be better on a console. So then you see what it would take to put it on a console, and it's basically sell your soul, your game, your company, and don't make anything. So you just put it up on Steam, and you get waves of people that try playing it, but then you always have that one person that automatically gives it a bad review. You know, they play it for 2 minutes, they give it a bad review, and they simply say it's an indie game. And it almost seems like people just don't like it, just don't like indie developers. And I know there's some really bad indie developers. What was the chick's name? Brianna Wu, Zoe Quinn. They're just really bad. Okay, but then you have others which actually try. I've been playing one indie game, Subsistence, a lot. Really good game. Sometimes it can be unfair difficulty wise, but other than that, great game. Cold Game's the developer. One guy, he updates as a hobby, but he can still make a game and still make money off of it, and it is a good game. But then so many people will say, you know, it's hard, or, you know, it's one guy, I don't think he'll even be with the game for that long. And it almost seems like people always put indie developers into a bad light until they do something good. Like, I remember seeing the original Rust when it was in Legacy. It first came out, there were a bunch of people that would say, you know, I think they're just gonna put a bunch of stuff in and drop the game, and it's still going. I'm fairly certain it's one of the more popular games on Steam. It's not the most, but it is very popular. And so many people said, you know, I thought that it would fail, but it's going so well now. So once again, it almost seems like you're put into a bad light, you're demonized until you actually do something. And I find that people don't have a neutral stance on indie developers anymore, especially since you have so many people they just ignore indie games completely because it's an indie game, and then you get demonized because you're an indie developer. And I find the biggest thing is people just don't like the aspect of open market, where one person can have an idea, make something, and then put it up for everyone to play. It's very prominent with the Xbox fanboys and the PlayStation fanboys, where they try to exclude or just completely ignore indie games on PC as exclusives simply because they're indie games, and they say, well, it's an indie game, it's bad. And I find that if you are an indie developer and you get people that are saying that your game is bad simply because it's an indie game, you shouldn't stop doing what you're doing simply because people don't like the fact that you're an indie developer. But I find that if there is reasonable, you know, complaints about the game, that you should try and fix it. But what I'm getting at with this video is, when you're an indie developer, you're almost demonized, because there are so many bad indie developers, so many, you know, 5-year-old kids or people like Brianna Wu who make shit. They review it themselves so it looks like it's accepted really well. Then when they're caught out, they delete everything. Or if you go on YouTube and you just search up game progress or Unity 5 game progress, there are a lot of channels that make very interesting looking games, but then they just stop for months or years, and when they finally come back, no one watches them. I found one game that had really strengthened the aspect of of people thinking that indie developers are just money hungry. There was one game, Garbage Day, and the person had made a lot of strides in their game, but then they just stopped. Then they released another game with basically the exact same idea, the exact same art style, but with a different name, and they tried to make money off of that, and so many people got fooled by it. And I find people like that really are what make indie developers look bad. They just make them look like they're only out for cash. That's all they want. That's what they've ever wanted, and they can never be good. Or on the other side, you can have really good indie games like Rust, where the developers do so many things right, but right when they screw up once, they're demonized. People want their money back. People boycott the game. They say it's a shit game. It almost feels like you can never make people happy as an indie developer. You can do so many good things, but right when you screw up once, people just think that you'll never fix it. You'll never get past it. Now, in the footage of this video, I don't have my normal avatar. What I'm showing you is are screenshots of assets from my game. None of these are textured, but I just wanted to show you that you can do stuff, but it doesn't matter. Like for me, I've been an indie developer in training. I haven't made a full-fledged game yet, but I've been an indie developer in training and learning more about everything for about 2 years. Okay, I'm very experienced with 3D modeling, and so when I say, I give concept art to other indie games, I give recommendations, hey, this might be a cool thing. But then right when it comes down to it, it almost seems like, yeah, there is positive response, but then you also have some people where it's just like, you shouldn't, give ideas. This game is going to die off anyway. But, oh well, those are my thoughts on what it's like being an indie developer and how people can react to you. Oh well, this video is very uncoordinated, but I'll see you guys with an actual video very soon. Goodbye.